Good morning, folks. For our folks on the end over here, if you would like to move in, please feel free. We can all be friends, get all close. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. My name is Alicia Smith. I'm a Diversity and Inclusion Program Analyst with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Happy to have you all in this morning's session entitled AI-Powered Talent Transformation Leading with Empathy in a Skill-First Era with Krystina Jackson. Before we jump into her exciting material, we want to go over a couple reminders. First, please silence your devices. We want to make sure we don't have any distracting background noise this evening or this morning. If we do have time for questions, we would ask that you please come up to the mic in the middle at the end of the session. That way we can make sure our virtual attendees also hear your questions. And we do ask for your feedback. We have a survey that we would like you all to complete once the session concludes. You can find that in your portal or in the link to this individual session. So with that, I will turn you all over to Krystina. Thanks all.
Hello, everybody. I'm on. I think I'm on now. Yes. Hi, good morning. Happy Friday. There it is. Right? There it is. So welcome to this session. Is this the last one of the day, or is there one more after mine? Okay, so we got the marathoners here, right? So we're going next, and then after that, we're good. How has it been? Yes? So I just got here yesterday. Yes, that's the title. And yes, we will talk about things. I just got here yesterday, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to do much. So if I can chat with anyone to say what to do, but I was here last year. Did anyone go to Nashville last year? Yes? Okay. So I love Nashville so much that I ended up having my 40th birthday in Nashville. And I spent a week after the thing because I loved it. So I was really excited to come here to Dallas because I'm just when I speak at these conferences, I get ideas and then I find somewhere else to travel. So good morning and welcome. I think I keep putting it in my pocket. Is the green button? It's the green button. Okay. So I want to start with asking this question to the group, right? When you look at the title and you think of AI transformation and leading it with empathy, can anyone tell me what you think of? And you can just shout it out. What is coming to mind for you with this particular topic? AI, oh, nice. AI and empathy don't go together. Anybody else? What else we got? Humanity, okay? Leading AI transformation with humanity. Anything else? What else we got? Okay. I would say the same, and I think the whole AI and humanity don't go together is a very interesting thing, because I will definitely say that there is a length of time between when you are going to talk about a topic and then you actually do, particularly at conferences like this, right? And so with this particular topic, obviously, just like everyone else, I've been watching AI and I've been watching the changes. I've been watching what's been happening on the workforce. I've been watching all of the things just like a lot of other folks do, especially because of the line of work I'm in. And things are changing so rapidly that it is just opinions are changing swiftly, right? And where we stand is changing swiftly. So we're going to talk about that, but I'll introduce myself. My name is Krystina Jackson. I am studying organizational leadership. I'm a people and culture professional. I'm in organizational development, organizational leadership, and I've been in learning and education and development in some capacity for the past 20 years. Yes, I have 5 children, basketball team, right there. No, she wasn't on purpose. I didn't because people always ask that. Oh my gosh, did you have? No, because it's 2026, okay? Right? It's expensive. That's expensive. So no, that's not what happened. My research emphasis specifically is on change resistance. I'm really interested in that. I'm interested in the typology of resistance. We tend to only deal with it one way. And I'm interested in different interventions for resistance. So that's where it is. Now, some of that comes into play here, but not really this conversation. But I know that everyone's undergoing a lot of change. So I do want to say that there are things and specific ways that we can address resistance to change that are sort of outside of what we normally hear. So about Converge, the name of my boutique consulting firm is Converge Consulting Group, and these are all the different folks that we've worked with in different capacities. And so a lot of it is around organizational development, organizational leadership, and learning and development, both at the enterprise level, government level, working with FIRE, working with corporates, smaller ed tech firms, and nonprofits. So we've got a wealth of things. So the question that we're really asking here is, how do we lead AI transformation with empathy? Which again, oil and water, and they don't feel like they mix. Can anyone tell me what you think of when you think of the challenges around doing this? Give me some words. Challenges. What are you up against? On what part? Fear in what way? Yes. And what about, from your vantage point, being a talent professional, what is the challenge with this for you, if any? Okay. Yes. So there's the way that this is happening right now in hiring and specifically, yes. Any other challenges that you have in the room as talent professionals when it comes to the idea of leading AI transformation with an empathetic lens? Tell me more. Okay. Yes. Yes, those things. Any other ones? Yes. In what way? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how are you seeing the impact in your orgs with your people? I know that fear probably. What other impacts are you seeing in your orgs with your people as it relates to AI? And particularly any plans to introduce, use, begin to build AI use into processes, into workflows, and the expectation that people will use it. What is coming up there? Yes. Yes. And we, on the one hand, we say AI doesn't have to take your roles. Do we agree with that? That it doesn't have to? Okay. Has it? Has it taken away people's roles? Huh? Have we seen companies? Right. Okay. So let me ask this question. If you are with a group and you are trying to make that case that AI can help you add value to the role that you're doing, okay? Let's say you're a leader and you're implementing this and you're saying that, you're making the case, right? There are people that do think that. I think that, right? But what are we seeing? We are also seeing other people make different decisions that we don't necessarily agree with, or we think is not a human-centered lens at all, has no empathy at all, has no care at all for the human being, right? And what we're noticing is we are shifting salaries, yes? One person really put it, a friend of mine really put it in a good, a clear way, right? That AI, some of it in terms of some organizations and their bottom lines, their line items, right? They're taking salaries and salaries are moving into investing there, yes? So then when you're in an organization and you want to make the case for value add and you want to say that we can adapt and we can learn and we can grow and we can this, does it make sense if you still have folks that are like, no? Yes. When they tell you, well, I think that this is here and I'm going to, it's going to take my role, it's going to this, and then you say, no, it won't, let's use and adopt the tool anyway. Does it make sense if you continue to have someone say, no, thank you? Absolutely. We can't gaslight people out of the news, okay? We can't do that. We see posts all the time. Yes, it is doing it. Let's not lie, okay? Let's not say a thing is not a thing. So one of the things for me is I will call it what it is. I will say both. I will hold both. And I also used to, in the very beginning, I was excited like others. I also come from ed tech, so I taught chemistry, I did the things. I went over, I moved to ed tech, and then I moved into enterprise learning, and my path came up through teaching. And when I first learned about it a few years ago, when it became open to the public, I was very, very excited about the possibility. And I also would say those things. It's great. It can add value. There's things you can do. It'll make your work. Like, we can do more. Like, you can spend less time on this, and you can spend more time on that, and you could go deeper, and you could be more. Like, I did all the things, right? And people were still kind of hesitant, but you did the things. But now, right, understanding leadership, this is what we have to understand about empathy, and we're going to go over this, is that we want to know it is what it is, and certain things and saying certain things is not helpful, right? And what's not helpful is not saying the thing that is true or not responding to the thing that is true. It may be true, right, that in your role and the way your organization does this, that currently there is no plan to take roles or any of those sorts of things. That can be absolutely true, and the other side is true as well, right? And so one of the things about holding the space, particularly in a topic like this, is that can AI itself be empathetic? No, no, it's not alive, okay? So no, it's not a human, okay? It doesn't do that. But we can. How we do it can, okay? And part of that does include saying the things out loud. So here we go, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 people, employees that were surveyed, and when I put the materials up, I can give you a link. 8 out of 10 people from Harvard Business Review recent article. They did some research on AI angst and others, and there's some really good information in there about particularly how different sectors are responding to AI, healthcare versus finance versus this versus that. And 8 out of 10 people have varying degrees of anxiety, distrust, and unbelief in AI's potential overall. 80%. People are using it, but 80% of people feel this way. So they're using it, and if they feel this way, but they're using it, why are they using it? Because this is an interesting insight, because the folks that feel this way are using it, and in fact, some of the folks that are more anxious are using it more. They're forcing their way into using it and integrating it more. And it's a very curious finding, and it is counterintuitive. But what do you think is happening? Mm-hmm. Correct. So this is what we have. We've got, it's not coined, but you've got something that looks like anxious compliance. You've got something that looks like fawning, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It used to be fight or flight when I was a kid, okay? Which was so long ago in the 1900s, as my children like to tell me. But we also have added fawn now, which is essentially like this people pleasing, this being overly compliant, overly this, overly that. So you've got anxious compliance here. Do you think that innovation lives there? Does not live there. So without understanding the context of what we're in and what people are feeling, and then naming it specifically, you're going to just have, maybe you'll get your adoption metrics, maybe you'll get your usage, maybe you'll get your things, fine. But the potential of AI gets lost. Does that make sense? Okay, so the money that was invested into the thing by whatever org for the potential that it has is not even being utilized because 80% of the people are anxious while using it. So they're using it and they're forcing themselves to use it, but they're using it not from a place of curiosity or innovation. They're using it from a place of pressure and compliance, and you don't get creativity there. Okay, so that's why this topic is what it is. So now, here we go. One of the things that it mentioned, I want to say maybe explicitly, is something called empathy mapping. Has anyone ever heard of it? Anybody heard of empathy mapping? Okay, so if you Google an empathy map, you will see sort of this quadrant, okay, and there's a person, and you can say like, and you have a persona, right? You can give this persona a name if you want. And it's a person in the middle, and there's like, what do they say? What do they think? How do they feel? What do they do? And it allows you to have this picture. That is one way. Feel free to use it. That's not what we're doing today. Thank you for telling me what we're not doing. You're welcome. But I just want to tell you what we're not doing, like on purpose, so that like when you go Google it, if somebody decides to Google empathy mapping, you're like, this isn't what she did. Nope, I didn't. But I know it's there, but we're not, okay? But you can, but we're not. I'm not, okay? So this is what I think. And you guys tell me if you feel this. You've heard people say, like, be more empathetic, build empathy, like all these things. Have you heard anyone say, like, how to do this thing? Some people kind of just have it, yes? Have you met people that don't? Okay. And sometimes when people struggle with connecting empathetically, what do you think is the biggest barrier that you've seen? What are the biggest barriers that you've seen in people's ability to be empathetic to a situation? Let me ask it this way. When someone can't show up empathetically in a situation, what reason do you hear? Yes. There you go. Any others? I've been through this. I didn't deal with it that way. Any others? Yes. So some people have the ability to show up empathetically, but don't have the capacity in the moment, right? But recognize that they could, but they can't right now, right? And then there's all the other people that are really like, well, when that happens to me, I don't do that, right? Okay. Let's figure out how to overcome that barrier, because we can. There's a way to build capacity for folks, and I do want to start there. And then when I think of a map, we're going to do it a little bit differently, okay? So first, how do we really build capacity, and what is empathy really? There are three things, honestly, that we can do to build empathy. And I want, and take this. If you have any person that is struggling with showing up empathetically and things like that, let's do this. The key here is that empathy does not require you to have the same experience, right? It doesn't require you to be triggered in the same way and have the same reaction. That is not what empathy is, okay? When we think that's what empathy is, because we feel like, right, when we describe it, what is it? How do we describe it? We describe it as like feeling what the other person feels, or connecting to that experience, right? And we think of it as connecting to the experience. And let me say this really clearly. When it comes to empathy, you are not connecting to the experience. You're not. You are not identifying an experience that you've had and an experience that they've had and then saying, because I've had that experience, I can support you and show up for you and I know what to say. That is not what you're doing. You are connecting to the feeling. You're not connecting to the experience. So, this is step number one for actually building capacity for empathy. And I'm going to go there because the next thing is like, how do we lead, right? And today we're talking about AI transformation. Tomorrow we could be talking about a reorg. We could talk about anything. This topic, hold it, because it's not just AI transformation. That's the context for today's conversation. But remember I said, I study change, resistance, and change management. So please, use this anywhere. That being said, humans have a full range of emotions. Has anyone ever seen this wheel before? Yes? Anybody high fives? Yes. I said high fives. You can't give me a, right? Okay. If you haven't, feelingswheel.com. That's what it is. I don't know. I don't think it's ever really been cited. I don't know who came up with it. But what you do notice is that not only are there all the feelings in the middle, which are the ones that we're probably most familiar with, they're actually most like our Inside Out characters, if you've ever seen that. Yes, I've seen it. I see all the things, okay? I watch a Disney movie every morning, in fact. It's how I try to wake my daughter up, and it still takes me 45 minutes, okay? So inside out characters look like the ones in the middle, and those are the ones we are most familiar with, okay? But what this feeling wheel shows you is that you can actually look at that and say, well, I'm not just, for example, fearful, right? I am feeling threatened. And maybe I'm feeling threatened, I'm feeling exposed, I'm feeling, right? So you can go deeper and name emotions specifically. And the more specific you can get with your emotions, the more specific you can get with how to support yourself. And do we feel like, do we think we know where I'm going with this? Why it's important for you to know your own emotions? Okay? So the first thing you do to build capacity is notice and name your own emotions. And then you identify what is helpful for you with that emotion. So when I am feeling X, this is what's helpful for me when I feel X. Does that make sense? Now let's go back and let's pick one. No, we won't pick one yet. I'm just going to do this. Okay? And then number 3, the next thing you do, and there's really just 3. Choose your own adventure for steps 4 beyond. I don't know, right? Identify what's not helpful. So when I am feeling X, this is helpful. And when I am feeling X, this is not helpful. And if you cannot identify what is helpful, skip it. Please do not identify what is not helpful. And when you identify what is not helpful for that specific emotion, don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't start there. Don't do it. How do we do this? Well, this is the thing. When it comes to showing up for folks empathetically, it is about recognizing perhaps what another person is feeling. Does that make sense? This is how this works. You recognize perhaps this person is feeling blank. You don't have to say, I think you're scared. No, just, you know what I mean? Start at a place that feels reasonable. You know what I mean? We know people. Start there. And then you say to yourself, okay, you know what is helpful when I'm feeling this way, right? And you know what's not helpful when I'm feeling this way. Particular phrases are not helpful for certain people in certain situations, correct? So when you feel angry, as an example, it is often not helpful for anyone to hear to calm down. Yes? Does anyone like to be told to calm down when they're angry? When someone tells you to calm down, what do? You're like, oh, you think I'm angry. Let's go. Right? Oh, okay. Don't worry about it. I feel like you wanted to calm someone down. I will be that for you. I wasn't, but now I am. Right? That's not helpful for anybody. So when someone else is feeling angry, would you want to say, calm down? Do people say calm down? Yes. But is it helpful for you when you hear calm down? No. So should anyone say calm down? No. Because whatever you identify here, right, which is actually number 3, whatever you identify here, don't do it. Don't do it. Whatever you identify here gives you a better starting point. Do we understand that? So also, building capacity for empathy is not about right or wrong answers, because there are none, because humans are not the same. Okay? They're not. And it is possible that you can start with one of those things, and one of those things is also not helpful. That's fine. Take it as data. Move on. Yes? Okay? But this is the way to actually build the empathy. So this is what I want to say, is that change feels like threat. Scientifically, that's what it is. Right? Physiologically, a lot of things are going on. And physiologically, those things happen before we are even conscious of it. Our body is doing what it does. It is an evolutionary process. It's the way our brains are wired. Why? Because change is uncertainty, and it's not safe. And so when you cannot understand, like when you're not habitual, when you can't particularly control things or know what's going to happen, know what the outcomes are, it becomes unsafe for your body, and your body does a bunch of stuff. Okay? So that's what's happening. So one thing you have to do is understand that change triggers uncertainty. The brain reads it as danger. And if you are responsible for implementing AI, or you are leading through AI, the way I like to say it is you are the bear. And I want to be really clear about this because I didn't used to go into my organizations like this. Okay? So this is how I used to do it. I've done a lot of things, okay? Usually the fact that I have ADHD comes up really early in conversation because like I'll be like, oh my God, no. But not today. Not today so much. We've been rolling. Okay? But I have done a lot of things. A lot of things. I have also taught, so when I introduce myself, I kind of tell people that path, right? The thing that like high school teacher, everybody makes sense of that. What are other things that I've done? I was an investigator for the FDA. Did that. I was going to go to medical school and I took the MCAT, changed my mind. I was going to go to law school, I took the LSAT, changed my mind. I think I like taking standardized tests. That's what I think I like. I think I like studying for them. I think I like getting high scores, and I think after I'm done with that, I'm done. It's a weird hobby, and it's expensive, so I don't do that. I color instead. But I have done it, okay? So how does that matter? It matters because when I was going in the FDA, I used to walk into organizations and what is it called? Inspect them. You got a badge, you feel like, oh my gosh, I walk in and, it's like you can't do nothing much. They tell you can't come in and you're like, I'll threaten you, whatever. I'll throw the badge, I don't know. So I used to come in though, and I used to smile. I used to say, oh my gosh, I want to see what you're doing, all the things, blah, blah, blah. And nobody would respond to me back in kind. Why would these business owners not respond back to me in kind, even though I am so nice to them? Why? Because I'm the bear. And a bear that smiles is still a bear that bites. Okay? So I'm walking in a certain way, expecting people to respond in kind, never recognizing any of this, and then wondering why I'm getting the responses that I'm getting. Now, that was, I don't know, I don't remember, 20 years ago or something like that at this point, right? So I come later, and now I am doing organizational development, organizational leadership, and I'm often called in to organizations when they have some sort of issue, some sort of culture problem, some sort of this. I have navigated conflict. I have done a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I have come in after organizations have had lawsuits. I have come in conflict. I have come in those sorts of things, yes? And so what taught me a lot was when I worked for the fire service. There are a lot of things that told me about the fire service, but does anyone know anything about the fire? Do we have any former fire or paramilitary folks in here, any of that? Okay, it's very specific culture, very specific thing. And I come in as somebody who is not sworn. I am a civilian. I have never been in the military, okay? I have never done any of those things. I get access directly to the chiefs, the highest chiefs that they don't even really get to talk to. I learn all the things about everyone. They tell me what all the problems are. And then I go out to a bunch of firefighters and other staff, and then I say, oh my gosh, I'm your friend. I'm here to help. And they don't like me. But I'm being nice, but I'm smiling, but I'm talking to you, but I'm telling you the truth, right? And I got stuck in a sticky situation because I was there and I didn't know certain things that were going on. So everyone thought I was there in response to a thing that I didn't even know was happening. And I went in there like on a cold call to be like, hey, I do work with fire stations in Washington State. I'd love to do work with fire departments, fire districts by my house. Here I am. They were like, oh my gosh, you just so happened to knock on the door right when the things, but then they didn't tell me the things. They were just very eager to work with me. Maybe you should have been a red flag, right? But I love them and they're the best now. We're still rocking a few years later. We're still rocking a few years later and they didn't like me. And do you know what switched? I was like, I'm the bear. And you have to own that and hold that part of it depending on how you show up in people's lives, okay? And it changed everything because when I recognize what I represent in somebody else, then I get to show up in the way that I would need. Does that make sense? Are we connecting the dots back to the last one? okay? If I recognize that this is what I represent, then I can do the same thing that I just said, those 3 steps, yes? I can name the emotion that I feel in this situation. For me, fear. For others, whatever. Does that make sense? Fear, terrified, whatever the case may be. Dread, I don't know, right? I recognize that. I recognize what is helpful, and I recognize what's not helpful. And what's not helpful for me, if I am that scared, is for someone to try to trick me out of my feelings. For someone to smile in my face and manipulate me out of my feelings. I'm a human being that is allowed to react to things that are terrifying. And you telling me how not scary it is does not make it any less terrifying. It is invalidating. So when you recognize that you are a threat in a situation, and for me, I have recognized that. I don't embody it, but I recognize what I represent. Does that make sense? So it shows up differently. So I don't come in and say, oh my gosh, I'm just here to be your friend. I'm here to work with you. I'm a part of the team. Because a rational adult will be like, girl, no, you're not. And then I'm like, fair, right? So how do we take this into any change? Honestly, there's AI transformation, but any change that we're talking about is we're gonna practice this, and then we're gonna look at how we can go through with this change. Number 1, pick an emotion that you feel people, now I've heard things like worry, I've heard things like anxieties. Do we wanna go with that? An emotion that you think folks are feeling in your groups, your teams, your orgs, as it relates to AI transformations, the introduction of AI tools, any of those things. What kind of emotion do we wanna go with here? Let's go with fearful. Do we want to get any more specific? Do we want to go with like anxious? Do we want to go with frightened, worried, worthless? What do we want to go with? Worried. Okay, so I want you to get into, well, if you can, get into small groups. I want you to think of this, and I want you to do the 3 things in a couple minutes. Talk with your group. 1, we've already done number 1, name the emotion. So 2, talk about when you are worried, what is helpful for you and what is not helpful for you. Ready? Go. All right, got about 1 more minute. All right, okay, here we go. We looked at worry. We had a chat about what is helpful, what isn't helpful. First, I want to know, how does it, for anyone in the room, doing it this way, has anyone sort of shifted in how they understand empathy and how they can show up empathetically? Yeah? What did you identify? What are some things you identified as what is helpful? What's helpful for some folks? Acknowledgement is helpful. Yes. I'm sorry? Authenticity is helpful, right? Yes. What else is helpful? Active listening is helpful. Any others? Trust is helpful. Yes. Yes. Right. Yes. Right. No, exactly, right? So those things are helpful. For me, when I'm worried about something, for me, what is helpful? Now, me and anxiety, we're tight, okay? And we struggle. So it's a little bit different over here. But I really think that I'm rational though, right? So like even though the thing that I am afraid of with anxiety is probably as likely as me getting hit by lightning today in this moment right now in this building, the chances aren't zero. So let's not treat me like it's zero. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can tell me it's not likely and we can get me there. But let's not start with, Krystina, that'll never happen. Well, actually, it could, right? When I'm feeling anxious, I need someone to not do that. Okay? What I need is someone to say, oh, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but let's talk about it. That's what I need. Someone to recognize that I'm not just making stuff up. Kind of did, but like it could, okay? And then move on to the other thing. Now, for other folks, what is not helpful? I imagine it's some of the opposite of what we said is helpful, but what is not helpful to hear? Yes. That's not helpful, right? When I went through it, what is not helpful to hear, repeating for the virtual folks, what is not helpful to hear is when I went through it, I did this. Yes, okay? Preface, I love my husband very much, okay? Start there, okay? He's gonna watch this back, it's recorded. He watches back my stuff, we talk about it, he'll hear it, okay? When we were very newly married, we were married very young, 22 years old, okay? So we were married very, very young. And we were having our normal communication things. And I was like, I don't like how that sounds when you say that to me. And he said, well, if you were saying it to me, I wouldn't mind. I said, well, that would be great if you're married to yourself, but you're not. You're married to me, and I don't like it. Okay? Yes, okay, spicy, okay? So is my daughter. And I've learned a lot about how to speak to people, because, But I did say that, and it worked, and we get it, and we're good, and we've been good for the last 18 years. But that's the thing. It's not helpful for someone else to say to you, well, when I did this, or when I did that, or when I did this, or when I did that. It doesn't matter, okay? The other thing, an example for, it doesn't have to be the same experience, and this is why saying that is not helpful, okay? I am afraid of roller coasters. I don't like them. I don't like how they feel. And for some reason, I feel like as soon as a drop happens, it's never going to end. Literally, for like 1.5 seconds, my whole being feels like I'm getting ready to go to the center of the earth. It is terrifying. I feel like it's just never going to stop. It literally only lasts for 2 seconds, and that's enough for me for a lifetime, okay? So I don't do it. My husband does not go on Ferris wheels. He can't stand it. I don't understand the problem. They're slow. They go around. They're big. I mean, it's not like a carnival Ferris wheel, right, that you put up in 24 hours. It's like the big ones, like the ones that just live there, okay? He won't go on them either. And for a minute, we did do the thing where it was like, oh my gosh, it's not scary, just come on, right? You do the thing to people. You pull them and you do the thing to people. Until one day we realized, oh my gosh, the level of fear that you have about roller coasters is the level of fear I have about Ferris wheels. We are both feeling the same thing, triggered differently. So you telling me how you feel on a roller coaster means absolutely nothing because I still am afraid of it. Why don't you tell me how you would get on a Ferris wheel? If you can tell me how you would get on that Ferris wheel, then perhaps I can get on the roller coaster. But if you can't get on the Ferris wheel for the same reason I can't get on the roller coaster, then stop telling me to get on the roller coaster. That's not helpful. Does that make sense? So you recognize that and you start there. So here we go. The next part, how are we going to do this? We talked a lot about theory. That's great, Krystina. Awesome. I understand. Empathy is great. We know how to do it. Next time I'm in an empathetic situation, I'll follow your steps. Great, Krystina, let's go. What am I supposed to do at work? Gotcha. Okay. We're going to talk about the need framework, but first, let's be honest, because I had a slide for that, because I feel the same way, that humanity and productivity, particularly with AI, they stay in competition with each other. Would you agree? Okay? We need speed, we need performance, and we need efficiency. Why? Because those sorts of changes and investments cost money. Yep, right? And at some point, we need to get our money back. We invest in tools, organizations invest in tools with the intention to increase some sort of something about their organization. They want productivity, so they want to produce more faster, which will eventually save them money on production time, right? Or allow them to scale, allow them to make more faster, be more efficient, right? That's how they get their money on the back end. So speed, performance, efficiency matter. Performance for teams, when we get tools that we hope will what? What are most tools doing? Streamlining processes, yes? all the tools, that's what they do. They streamline processes with the intention to increase speed and efficiency. Why? To make more, to build more, to make more money. But humanity requires, among other things, the human side of the work is about being empathetic and understanding people as they are, being transparent, people need that, and looking at engagement, overall employee engagement, right? Because what do we know about engaged employees? They perform better, usually more productive. Not only that, they have better quality of work products, yes. They tend to be more creative and more innovative, yes, because they're engaged in the work. They tend to be the ones that see a problem and they try to fix it, yes. They see a snag. If they can't fix it, they level it up. They're a person that can see a tweak in a thing and make it and say, hey, I think this, right? Disengaged employees do what? Because I've been one. Do you know what I did when I was a disengaged employee? Right before I resigned. I was also pregnant. So leave them alone. And they weren't. And they kept doing stuff. And what did I do eventually? I don't have an opinion on that. I'm a public speaker. I have opinions on everything. Okay? What happened when I got disengaged? I don't have an opinion on that. Sounds good to me. Go ahead and do it. Great. Awesome. Awesome. Is your previously engaged employee just sitting there being like, yeah, whatever it is? No, your previously engaged employee is curious and asking questions and trying to figure out how to improve and how to innovate. Everybody likes it. So as soon as you have that sort of thing and you have disengagement, you have a problem. That's what it sounds like, right? So here we go. What do we need to move through this? This is the question. This is how we use this. This is the question that this framework is asking. What do our people need to move through this, still able to grow, still able to contribute, and still here? Now, I will say that this is a decision point for an organization. And I recognize that organizations, some will decide to value this question and some will not. Does that make sense? As a person that works in organizations around culture, here's the thing. I don't ever really have an opinion about which way you choose, okay? If you bring me into an organization and you need me to help you solve a problem, great. If I find other culture things and you decide you don't want to do anything, great. But that will be an intentional choice. If you work with me, you've made an intentional choice because I've told you all the things that could happen if you don't. You chose it anyway, and then you did the thing. Does that make sense? So that you can be accountable to the outcomes. So an org might not care about this. Fine, let it be an intentional choice. What we don't want in organizations is for someone to do anything, everyone gets disengaged, people begin to leave, and a leader is like, I didn't know that would happen. If you had a conversation with me, you did know, okay? And you made a choice. And choices have to be made. Choices have to be made at times. That's fine. But when our choices have certain consequences for people, we have to, if we're going to be putting ourselves in a position of leadership, we have to be able to own the impact of our actions. Does that make sense? Okay? So again, you can take the framework back, and an organization is going to make a choice. And as leaders, you're going to make a choice, and that's fine. But it's got to be intentional, and if you're going to stand here and we're going to be in these seats as leaders, we have to be able to own our impact. So here we go. The first thing of this, when you're doing this transformation, and I'll put this up along with an expanded version with some other things that you can use to like assess your organization and see where you are, okay, with this. And this framework is not like, it's an infusion of empathetic leadership in the way these questions are being asked. Does that make sense? The way the questions are being asked and the way that what we are looking for, okay? So this framework is empathy in action. We know what empathy is. Now we're gonna take that and have a lens for assessing certain aspects of, in this case, it could be an AI initiative, but honestly, like I said, you can use it for any change. So number one, you're gonna notice what's actually getting in the way and who's carrying the weight of it. About 20% of workers feel pressured to use AI, and it came up already. 1 out of 5. And another reason why some folks feel pressured to use AI and will use AI more is because they fear that they will fall behind if they don't. So when you see who's carrying the weight of it, and you ask yourself that question, and you realize that AI maybe is the bear, while you're trying to tell people to adapt to it and embrace it and innovate with it, right? And you're only mentioning that part, but you're not ever acknowledging either in actual text or subtext that you understand that folks are being asked to use a tool that they can then, that they're training as they use it, that can then be turned around to move their role or reorg or restructure. And that is not an irrational thought. It's proven. So the first thing to notice if you want to lead empathetically here and have an empathetic lens is to recognize that, and my parents are from the South, call a spade a spade. Yes, we don't know. You can't say never. You can say, AI does do that sometimes. What you can say is, we're making a conscious choice not to engage in it that way. It is possible for someone to use it that way. We are choosing not to use it that way. This is our intention there. Other orgs have this choice. We have set this commitment. This is our intention here for this. Not to say, no, it won't. Yes, it will, and has. Okay? Number 2, what is the change costing people? So you ask this question, what is it costing people? And when it's costing people, it can cost a sense of security. It can cost a sense of identity. For AI is a newer technology, so you have some folks that have been in organizations for 30 years, 20 years, right? Doing things, all sorts of institutional knowledge. And sometimes in industries, you have something that comes in bright and shiny and new, and all of a sudden, no one cares about the institutional knowledge in the building anymore, right? Everybody wants to change everything. That is a change of identity in the workplace. That also is picked up as a threat by the body. And it doesn't lead to any of those things. Threatened brains can't learn. And when you want to introduce a change, you need somebody to learn the change, whether it's a process, a workflow, or a tool. You need someone to learn it and to be curious about it and to ask questions about it. That's what you need to have happen. It's not going to happen if people feel threatened. So you have to ask that, and then you show up empathetically in that. So the question is, when I recognize what it's costing people, when I recognize how people feel about it, what can I do? Well, what is helpful when I feel X? What policy could help if I feel X? And what is not helpful when I feel X? So in your conversations, even around adoption, does that change the conversation a little bit? Absolutely it does. Okay? So as you understand, this whole thing is not about changing AI in and of itself and all those sorts of things. I can't do it. I mean, you know what I mean? If I could, maybe, but I can't. And neither can anyone else in here. But what we can do is be honest in the way we show up as humans to other humans in light of this, and that's what the point of this is. Then you experiment. Anybody remember? Take chances. Make mistakes. Get messy. Anybody know where that's from? Some people don't know. Yes. I taught chemistry, right? So I love the magic school bus. So the question here is to experiment. Now, this is a part, right, where you need to know that there might be a time of slowing down to speed up. Does that make sense? Okay? So we all know about reskilling and upskilling, yes? So if we're using a new tool, we need to have time for people to experiment with the tool, yes? And if we're having time for people to experiment with the tool and there's a learning curve, does it make sense to have only outcomes-based metrics? No. There's an experimentation phase here where people have to be able to take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. If you can't, this is not an AI adoption, this isn't a tooling problem. Okay? This isn't a tooling problem. This is a psychological safety problem. This is a fear of failure problem. This is a relationship with failure problem in your organization. This is all of those things. Learning requires experimentation. We can see it all over, right? When babies learn to walk, they take a step, they fall, they take a step, they fall. They figure out how to do it, they figure out where their weight has to go, and they fall a couple times, and then they get it. Unfortunately, organizations don't often, some organizations do not recognize that natural learning process when it comes to adults and people in the workplace. Why? Because AI and other investments cost money, and the intention is to what? Increase speed, efficiency, and performance overall. So there's no time and energy put into this. But if you actually look at this and give your people space and time, then you give them space to be human, to do the things that you need them to do, so you get the full potential out of the AI tool that you bought in the first place. But without this, what do you get? Forced compliance, bare minimum, no innovation, no creativity, and all the things, right, in the vendor contract conversation that you have with an organization, and you go get a vendor for the new tool, and they give you a pitch, and they show you everything that it's capable of, and then the leadership makes a decision to purchase it because of everything it's capable of, but you only ever use 5% of the tool because all you got was compliance. You bought it for the features that nobody knows how to use, because we skipped this part and didn't recognize that humans need to experiment and get messy to learn. Okay. Finally, deliver. When you are measuring progress, particularly in this space, and also others, but when you are measuring progress in this space, you want to ask how you measure progress, not just outcomes. Right? Progress is more about how you are looking at maybe resiliency, how you're looking at decision making, how you're looking at communication, how you're looking at, people who are asking questions. If you offer internal learning around tooling, how many people are coming to that? How many people are experimenting? How many new ideas are you getting, right, from your teams? When you introduce a tool to a team, how many people on your team are coming and saying, hey, I just checked out this feature and I just played around with this feature. Look at what it can do. Is that valuable in a team that's trying to adopt a tool? To have your team say, look at this new feature I saw, I clicked around and I found out. How many folks have ever introduced a tool on your teams and have seen that nobody has clicked anything? Right? Nobody has brought any ideas for workflow. No one has done any of it. So that is what we do. We measure progress, not outcomes. When you look at the need framework here, and you look at these areas, and you ask yourself, what isn't getting attention, or where is the attention being placed? It is as much of skills that you can look for, because again, experiment is about asking, what skills do we need in our folks for the future? What skills do we have now? How can we bridge it? And how can we give folks time to bridge the gap? Yes? You experiment with that. You pilot it. Try this for 6 weeks. That's what you do, right? If you aren't able to do that, if your org is not allowing that to happen, your processes don't allow that to happen, right? We need to ask questions about the culture of how come we don't have a space for people to build skills. What is our intention here? If we don't have space for people to build skills, then it's hard to believe that the intention is for people to grow and adapt. Does that make sense? And how many times do we hear opposite messaging? We say, oh, be innovative, grow, we want you to grow, we want you to adapt, and then all we measure is outcomes, and then no one had a chance to grow or adapt, and people feel that they're already falling behind. No one should feel like they're falling behind in an experiment, because there's no goalpost. It's an experiment. There should be no fear about falling behind. There's only fear about falling behind if you actually don't have that in your culture. Does that make sense? But if you have experimentation, understanding how humans learn in your culture, no one's afraid of falling behind when they first get a new tool and they're trying it out. If all you can measure in terms of what is delivered, the outcomes that you get, if all you can measure are hard outcomes and you can't measure the learning process along the way, you can't look at that, you can't take qualitative measurements, listening sessions to understand how people feel and measure that over time. You can't measure the changes in resistance, right? You can't measure those sorts of things. Then I wonder about your intention, about growth and people and all of those things. I wonder about that because those things are incongruent. Does that make sense? So as you look at this framework and you ask the questions, along with the thing that I'm going to upload, as you ask the questions, right, you really want to understand if there is something here that you feel like we can't do, then we want to unpack that in the culture because we do want to have a culture that allows for us to consider this. If we can't consider it, that's a different problem altogether. Does that make sense? Okay. So, in the last couple minutes, I have this here to think about. And as we think and as we close and as we talk, can anyone think right now of places of a letter, a notice, empathize, experiment, deliver, and how you're measuring? An area where, feel free to say, I don't know, can you say that? Where you feel like your org has opportunities to spend more time in a space. You could spend more time. We could spend more time in experiment. I don't know. Where could you spend more time? Probably in the experiment part. Yeah. Right? And how you set that up. By thinking about you. Again, start with your own emotions, and it helps you learn how to support other people. So last question for anybody else. Of the things you've heard today, a lot of information, fast hour. Does anyone have one idea, one concept, one thing that they can think of that they're like, you know what, I can maybe do this, consider this, or this was intriguing? Anybody have one of those? Yes, yes, yes. Using it as a way, again, empathy in action. It's one thing to say I can be empathetic and wait for something. It's another thing to build something with an empathetic view, and that's the point of this. Does that make sense? Okay. Change is hard, it just is, and that's just what it is. It is what it is, fact, it just is, for lots of reasons, okay? I love navigating it, I love doing it. If you guys need more support, please let me know. I would love to connect with anybody that I can on LinkedIn. So please, there's a QR code to just do that and we can stay connected. And I'm happy to talk with all of you. Thank you for hanging in with me this morning. I really appreciate it. I hope that it was worth your time with our marathon. Happy Friday. Yes, I know it's not Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you all and everywhere you're going. I really appreciated it. And I hope you did too. Thank you so much.